This video is about how to solve problems involving genes and alleles. For the 100th time, remember in meiosis that chromosome numbers split in half. So if mom's cells start with a big H, her egg cells will only have one big H. If dad's cells start with little h, then after meiosis in his sperm cells, each one will only have little h. Mom's egg and dad's sperm come together in fertilization to make a zygote that is heterozygous. The zygote will go through mitosis millions of times to create identical cells to eventually produce a baby with all its cells being heterozygous, big H, little h. Without even knowing it, you already know this first law of genetics, the law of segregation. During meiosis, alleles separate from each other into separate gametes. So if you start with big H in a cell, after meiosis, each gamete will only have one big H. If you start with little h in a cell, after meiosis, each gamete will only have one little h. One way to determine a possible alleles that a child will have is called a Punnett square. Here's a problem. Brown hair is dominant to blonde hair. Mom is big H, so she's homozygous dominant. Dad is little h, so he is homozygous recessive. What is the probability of hair color in their kids? Well, the first step in doing a Punnett square is you have to make a key. The MCAS, and myself included, will give you really long problems with lots of information. It's hard to figure out what's being asked. So you make a key before you start any of the problems. Here's my key. The big H represents the brown hair allele. The little h represents blonde hair allele. The mom's genotype, so her letters, are big H, and dad's genotype is little h. Notice I didn't figure anything out. I'm just rewriting the question so it's easier for me to understand. Mom's phenotype, so what she looks like, has brown hair. Because she's big H, that means she has brown hair. Dad's phenotype is blonde hair. Because his genotype was little h, it means his phenotype is blonde hair. Step 2. Determine the gametes for each parent. So if mom is big H, after meiosis, each one of her gametes will have one big H. Dad is little h, so after meiosis, each one of his gametes will have a little h. So I did step 2. There's a big H in mom's eggs and a little h in dad's sperm. Step 3. Set up the Punnett square. So you draw a little square like this. You find out the gametes, which we did in the last step, and you put mom's gametes at the top of the square. So there we go, a big H on one side and another big H on the other side. You take dad's gametes, which we figured out in the last step, and you're going to put it on the side of the Punnett square. Now you're going to cross the gametes. And what I mean by cross is just put these letters together. So for instance, we put mom's big H in the first box and dad's little h in the first box. Because remember, mom's egg is fertilized by dad's sperm, so you get a zygote that could be big H, little h. Let's do the same thing for this box. You take mom's egg and dad's sperm and you put it together. Let's do the same for this one. Mom's egg, dad's sperm. There we go. Last one, mom's egg, dad's sperm. Finally, big H, little h. Notice the trick. I'm putting all the capital letters first. This is typically how it's written. You could write it little h, big H, but most scientists like to write the capital letter first. All right, so I did step 3, set up the Punnett square. Now step 4, we have to figure out the percentage, the fraction, and the ratio of genotypes and phenotypes in the offspring. So this little box here represents what the kids will be. These are mom's eggs, these are dad's sperm, and these are all the possible kids. So if they had 4 kids, these are what the 4 kids would most likely look like. It's just a probability. It's not like all the kids will definitely be this, but this is a pretty good chance of what the kids would look like. So let's do the genotype of the kids first, these 4 kids. If you were to look at all 4 kids, every single one of them has the exact same genotype. So every kid is going to be big H, little h. Because it's every kid, we could say 100% of the kids will be big H, little h. If we're talking about a fraction, 100% represented as a fraction is simply 1. If we represent it as a ratio, every single kid is going to be big H, little h. They're going to be nothing else. So it's going to be 1 to 0. Now let's do the phenotype. Because they are big H, little h, every single one of these kids is going to have brown hair. Therefore, it's 100%. As a fraction, it's 1. And as a ratio, it's 1 to 0. Now let's actually answer the question. The question is, what is the probability of hair color in their kids? Well, since we just did the last step, we already have the answer. We know that 100% of these parents' kids will have brown hair. 4 out of 4, 100%, 1 to 0, all that means the same thing. Each one of these boxes represents the probability of their kids, and every single one of their kids will have brown hair. Now let's try some more practice problems. The problem in this one is red flowers are dominant to white flowers. A homozygous red flower is mated with a heterozygous red flower. What is the probability that their offspring will have red flowers? Step 1, make a key. This is a long problem. I don't really know what it's asking, so I want to make a key to help me out. So I just read and I found out that red flowers were dominant. So I'm going to make it the big letter R. Remember, capital letters represent dominant alleles? I just happened to choose the letter R. You can use any letter you want to represent red flower. So I did big R is red flower allele. Therefore, the white flower allele is recessive, so I'm going to make it little r. Flower 1, it says is homozygous red. So if it's homozygous red, I know it's 2 of the same, and since red is dominant, I know it's homozygous dominant. So the genotype, which is the letters, is big R for flower 1. Flower 2 is heterozygous. Heterozygous means different, so I know it's big R, little r. Phenotype. The phenotype of flower 1 is red flowers. Big R is red flowers. The phenotype of flower 2 is big R, little r. That's red flowers as well. Step 2, determine the gametes for each parent. So if the flower 1 is big R, when it separates in meiosis, there's going to be a big R in one gamete and a big R in the other gamete. Flower 2 is big R, little r. When it separates in meiosis, a big R will go into one gamete, a little r will go into the other gamete. This is the law of segregation. It just means that alleles separate from each other during meiosis. Now that we have the gametes, we can put them in a Punnett square. We have mom's gametes, we put them at the top. Dad's gametes, we put them on the side. Then we try to figure out what the possible offspring will be like. Remember, this is just a probability. This is not exact, but this is the best way we have to guess to see what the kids will turn out to be. So we're first going to cross mom's egg with dad's sperm, or flower 1 with flower 2. We get big R. Cross these two, big R. Cross these two, big R, little r. Cross these two, big R, little r. Step 4. Figure out the percentage, the fraction, and the ratio of genotypes and phenotypes. Okay, so here are our kids again. All 4 of these are kids. The genotypes, it looks like there are 2 different types of genotypes. You could either be big R, which is 50%, 2 out of the 4 are big R, which is equal to half. 2 out of 4 is half. Or you could say 2 of them are big R compared to the other 2. So that's a 2 to 2 ratio. You could also reduce it to 1 to 1. Means the same thing. The other 50% are big R, little r. 50%. Half of them, 2 out of 4. Again, you could do a ratio. 2 of them are big R, little r compared to the other 2. Big R. Phenotype. What it looks like. Well, every single one has the dominant big R allele, therefore every single one has red flowers. 100%, where 1 is a fraction, or a ratio of 1 to 0. All of them have red, none of them have white. Now let's actually answer the question. The question is, what is the probability that their offspring will have red flowers? We already figured it out. 100%. We win. Okay, here's a second question. If 75% of the flowers are red and 25% of the flowers are white, what are the genotypes of the parents? This is harder. We're now going to work backwards. So we know of the kids, 75% are red. There's 75%, 3 out of 4, and 25% are white. It's asking what could the parents be? So we have to work backwards here. What could mom's gametes be and what could dad's gametes be in order to get this outcome? Well, I figured it out because if the kid is big R, that must mean that mom is big R and dad is big R. Look in this corner. If the kid is little r, it must mean mom has an egg that's little r and dad has a sperm that's little r. So we figured out the gametes like this. Now we have to figure out the genotypes. If mom's gametes are big R, little r, it must have come from a cell that was big R, little r. So mom's genotype is big R, little r. Same thing with dad's. Dad's genotype is big R, little r. So we just answered the problem. What are the genotypes of the parents? Big R, and big R, little r. That's all I have. Write down your questions and ask me in class.